The 31st Egyptian Congress of Neurosurgery organized by the Egyptian Society of Neurological Surgeons. Our Congress is held this year in collaboration with the German Society of Neurosurgery and the Continental Association of African Neurosurgical Societies. We are honored for your participation in our Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, the Egyptian National Anthem. Last year, our Egyptian neurosurgical community sadly lost 3 of its honorable members. I'm kindly asking everybody to stand up as a moment of silence in respect of their souls. May God accept them to rest in peace. Okay, thank you. And now, prepare yourselves to be challenged, excited, and inspired by the next documentary video that will take you on a short trip in the world of neurosurgery in Egypt.
The Egyptian Society of Neurological Surgeons, ESNS. Egypt. In this country, life started thousands of years ago. Egyptians are proud that their grandfathers were leaders of the world in all specialties: arts, agriculture, engineering, science, and medicine. Ancient Egyptians believed that in afterlife, the soul would return to the human body to take its place in the eternal kingdom of Amun-Ra. This belief led to advancement of embalming techniques and preservation of the human body. Preservation of the face was quite important, and the technique of removing the brain through the nostril led to the early development of the transsphenoidal technique. The Edwin Smith papyrus was discovered in 1862, and it was attributed to Imhotep. This papyrus is the world's oldest well-known surgical experience. It documented 27 cases of head injuries and 6 cases of spinal injuries. Another papyrus, Eber's papyrus dating back to 1550 before Christ, it documented 2 cases of intracranial meningiomas found in ancient Egyptian skulls. The first tree-fine operation was performed in Egypt by Egyptian pharaohs under local anesthesia. This was evidenced by the discovery of healed wounds in skulls unearthed from tombs dating back 6,000 years. Another document had been found showing evidence that King Akhenaten IV was suffering from hydrocephalus, and he wore a helmet to hide his malady. Look at this very old painting. It shows an Egyptian surgeon performing a cranial surgery thousands of years ago. The modern history of neurosurgery in Egypt had begun in 1949, whereas the first neurosurgical practice was performed by Dr. Ahmed Abu Zikri, a general surgeon who studied neurosurgery at Mayo Clinic. He performed several neurosurgical procedures. However, he chose to continue as a general surgeon in Cairo University and encouraged his resident, Dr. Osman Surur, to be specialized in neurosurgery. The Egyptian Society of Neurological Surgeons, ESNS, had been founded 50 years ago during a meeting at Al-Ma'adi Military Hospital held in 1967. Professor Samuel Bokter was appointed the president, Professor Osman Surur the secretary, and Professor Said El-Ghandour the treasurer. They were joined by 7 qualified neurosurgeons and 30 trainees. At that time, neurosurgery was not considered a promising career course, but they nevertheless chose to pursue it. This memorial photo shows some Egyptian and European neurosurgeons and their wives during the first European Pan-Arab Neurosurgical Course, Cairo, 1979. Over the past 50 years, the leaders of our Neurosurgical Society had made a great effort to make it successful, and this puts a great responsibility over the shoulders of the current members to do their best in order to maintain and increase this success. Completing the journey of the former officers, the new team, including the President, Professor Dr. Nasser El-Ghandour, General Secretary, Professor Dr. Khaled El-Bahi, and all the board members are working hard, not saving an effort to push the society forward. A lot of requirements had been fulfilled, including database for about 800 members, bank account, and headquarters. Rich scientific activities had been noticed during the last year, including meetings, courses, and workshops in all neurosurgical subspecialties. By the help of our highly qualified IT members, we have a new advanced website for the society. The Egyptian Society of Neurological Surgeons is the first society in Egypt that introduced the e-hotline service, which is the fastest and most recent way of communication between all members. Egyptian neurosurgeons are honored to be affiliated to this ancient society, and they are working hard in order to recall attainments of their grandfathers.
And now, I'm honored to introduce the President, Professor Dr. Nasser El-Ghandour, President of the Egyptian Society of Neurological Surgeons and the Congress and one of the pioneers in neurosurgery in his welcome speech.
I hope you enjoyed watching this movie. Really, I am honored about our history. His Excellency Mr. Amr Moussa, former General Secretary of the Arab League of States, Professor Stumar, President of the German Society of Neurosurgery, Professor Abdurrahman Saeed, President of the Continental Association of African Neurosurgical Societies. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to express my happiness about the contribution of all of you to the 41st Egyptian Congress of Neurosurgery, organized by the Egyptian Society of Neurological Surgery. I think it's a good opportunity to gather together, exchange opinions and experience for the benefit of our specialty, supporting our young generations or young neurosurgeons. Can I move the slide? I don't know how to move. I need some help. In the future. I'm also grateful to our highly qualified IT members for everything they supported our society. We are the first society to introduce the e-hotline service, and this is the most fast and the most recent way of communication. And by the way, it's Egyptian innovation. This number, which is 1967, it refers to the date of foundation of our society. So this link is very easy to be used. Just put this link in the smartphone. In few seconds, you are going to see everything about our society. All icons can be accessed and database. I'm also grateful to them because they did for us an advanced website for this meeting and an advanced mobile application. Both of them are working properly and very fast in mobile phones, either Androids or iPhones and notebooks. Let me speak briefly about the meeting. We have 5 courses attached to the meeting organized by the Egyptian Society: the spinal workshop, functional workshop, skull-based cadaveric hands-on, endovascular, and neuroendoscopy. We received 392 topics. 272 were selected and scheduled in our program, and 120 topics were not selected. All the papers submitted are very good, but the program is squeezed and we were unable to schedule everything in the program. This shows the contribution. All the international faculty is composed from 64 speakers from 23 countries. The largest contribution is from USA. We have 18 speakers, and Germany, we have 9 speakers. So the ratio between international and national submitted talks. This bar graph shows the ratio between selected topics. We have 165 from Egypt, 107 from other countries. This shows the total number of speakers. We have 80 Egyptian speakers speaking about papers, presenting papers, and 42 presenting lectures. We have 43 sessions. They are covering almost all subspecialties in neurosurgery. I think spine is the largest number of sessions, 8, and then oncology, 7 sessions. Now I think it's enough for tonight to speak about neurosurgery, and it's time to speak about Egypt. I suggest for all our guests to visit interesting places in Egypt, and the Egyptian Museum is just a few steps from our location. They always say that no visit to Egypt is complete without visiting the Egyptian Museum. It is the largest collection of ancient monuments all over the world. One of the most important landmarks of this country is the pyramids. It's one of the 7 ancient world wonders, and it's the only one which is still existing, and it is the largest building until now all over the world on earth. You can also visit the Sphinx, the Citadel, Sultan Hassan Mosque. Finally, I'm inviting all of you for the presidential dinner on Friday, 8:30. We are going to have a trip by Nile cruise in the Nile for 2 hours, a private cruise. I hope everybody is going to join us in this gala dinner or presidential dinner. At last, I would like to thank all of you for contribution to the Egyptian Congress of Neurosurgery, wishing for all of you a pleasant stay in our beautiful historical city, and wishing for this meeting to be a successful, great event. Thank you.
And now, I'm pleased to welcome President of German Society of Neurosurgery in Congress, Professor Dr. Walter Stummer.
Professor El-Ghandour, President of the Egyptian Society of Neurosurgery, dignitaries, fellow colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As acting president of the German Society of Neurosurgery, I'd like to extend my thanks and cordial greetings and regards from our society. I'd also like to thank you for inviting us to this joint meeting in this beautiful city and this historic country. Looking back, of course, I'm a rather young neurosurgeon compared to many of the older dignitaries. We have to look back and see, well, where were our interactions in the past? And we have to look far away, regrettably, because I believe it was in the year 2000 that last a delegation from Germany came to your country to interact scientifically with your society. So this is many years ago, 17 years ago to be exact. That's far, far too long. We did receive an invitation, I think it was to your 29th meeting, and the society at the time could not participate, so I would like to apologize for that. But still, that was no reason not to come here. So I'm very happy that we could make it this time, and I'm looking very much forward to the next 2 days with our societies. So we have to reestablish our connections in sciences, in neuroscience, and education. And for doing that, I would like to rest a moment to give you a little bit of an update on our society, on the history of our society, to make you understand what we are doing in Germany, and to maybe be a foundation for something really in the future. So, all the buttons. I'm sorry, there's only 6. Oh, this one maybe. So they gave me a pointer and some change. Okay, so of course, we look into Egyptian history, and of course, we're very quick to find the vast knowledge that existed in this country before the modern days. And of course, we talk about the trepanations that you have done so many years ago, actually from 1,500 years before Christ. And we find that the theory of the first neurosurgical procedure ever, to actually modern day procedure ever to have actually done in Egypt. And if I understand correctly, this is the Osiris resurrection, which might have been, according to these researchers, might might have been the fact that Osiris had a fracture of the cervical spine, and then he had extension, and then he was able to walk again. So that was interesting to find. When we look at what we have in Germany, it's a little more disappointing. And this is actually a picture by a Dutch artist, Hieronymus Bosch. And what it shows, something that looks a little bit like carbonation, but actually what it shows you is an imposter that is removing the stone of madness. And if you look very closely at this image, and this might be a little pointy here, look very closely at this image, what he's actually taking out here is a flower. So this is an imposter, and he had a lot of money, got a lot of money to actually cure many of the ailments people came to him. So that was the history in the Middle Ages. So there was nothing much there. Modern day neurosurgery, we think, began with this man who was also a very good surgeon. So he's the grandfather of neurosurgery, and he is the father of general surgery, Anton Bergmann. And as so many of the pioneering surgeons, he is a military surgeon. But he did have a specific interest in the brain and in brain surgery, and he was the first to actually systematically study surgery in this very sensitive region. And he wrote a number of books about this even at the time. And one thing which is attributed to this important man is the concept of elevated intracranial pressure. He said as he was treating the wounded military, this was something which he experienced many times. And he was also important for the fact that into brain surgery introduced the ascending principle of antisepsis, which really made a difference at the time. The grandfather. One in the direct lineage from Anton Bergmann was this man, who was not so well known for two reasons. The one, he acted before during the First World War, and after the First World War, as you know, Germany and German was literally banned from literature and the international collaborations. And Philip Krause himself was also not a very good networker. He was not very good at English at all. But he made some considerable advancements to the field of neurosurgery at the time. So he was the first to describe a number of deep-seated approaches to the brain. For instance, and mind you, this is the turn of the 19th to 20th century, the approach to the gasseric ganglia, the approach to the cerebellopontine angle, the first transfrontal approach, and here's an image of the transfrontal approach. Of course, you understand well that his mobility was beyond 80%, but still, some patients were surviving at the time. The techniques have nowadays obviously been much refined. He was also the first to describe the supracerebellar approach to the pineal region, forthwith known as the causa approach. So the important man, but not well known. In contrasting to that, this man was much more well known. This was Ottfried Förster from Breslau. Now, Breslau is now a city in Poland, but this used to be Eastern Germany. Ottfried Förster was not really a neurosurgeon. By training, he was a neurologist. He saw himself as a neuroscientist. And even from the way he dresses, it sort of gives you a feeling of how he felt by himself. So he was, I think, a paradigmatic clinician scientist or neurosurgeon scientist, and that's the way he saw himself. He was a pupil of Karl Warnecke, first described the sensoric language areas. And he was, of course, he was also busy at a time when there was a lot of warfare, and he went into neurosurgery just like Victor Horsley, because he had the feeling that he needed his knowledge of the anatomy of the brain to guide the surgeons, and they ended up eventually doing it himself. And because he was doing this during a time of warfare, he treated very many veterans with brain injury, and many veterans with brain injury and epilepsy. And so what he did was he developed, well, a number of procedures. One, he was well known for a Purser's procedure, which was, there was a rhizotomy to treat spasticity, again, in patients which had sustained brain injuries in the war. But he also treated a lot of veterans with epilepsy, and he was actually the first to take local anesthetics and operate on patients under local anesthesia. And he was the first to introduce cortical galvanic stimulation for stimulating, for instance, the motor pathways. So he knew English well. He could speak 5 or 6 languages. He was highly networked at the time. This was before the Second World War. And he actually had a number of foreign neurosurgeons, also from the United States, coming, on which maybe Wilder Penfield from Montreal is one of the most well-known. Now, the surgeons coming from the United States were a little appalled at the way he actually began the surgery, because they described his craniotomy as being very traumatic. So he was one of the surgeons that first did the craniotomy and then closed everything up and then went back again after a while, after the patient had recovered the sequelae of the craniotomy. But then he would work, and Penfield came in 1928 and stayed with him for 6 months and learned from him how to do the galvanic stimulation of the neocortex, and took that back to Montreal and also published together with Otfried Förster, and took that back to Montreal. And then, as you know, he was the father of this particular diagram here, the homunculus, which describes to us the sensoric and primary motor cortex, and went on to being a very important epilepsy surgery. And basically, along those lines, after Ojuman and others, these are the fathers of awake craniotomy procedures that we're now doing these days. There was another side of German neurosurgery between the 2 world wars, which I want to go into briefly, and particularly related to this neurosurgeon, Emil Heimann. Now, you don't know much about Emil Heimann because Emil Heimann was a Jewish neurosurgeon, and as it happened in this dark period of the German history, he was discriminated. He was banned from his offices and from his work, but from his technical expertise, he should be put in one line with Otfried Förster and Krause from Berlin. But again, he was banned. But he also introduced a lot of very important things to neurosurgery. For instance, he had learned very much from the Americans who used Cushing's electrocautery technique to neurosurgery. He further improved vestibular schwannoma surgery to have an acceptable degree of mortality, and he was also an expert in tumors of the spinal canal. Another neurosurgeon, also a Jew, who was also well known at this time, but then discriminated because of his Jewish ancestry, had performed the first successful operation for vestibular schwannoma in Germany, but again he was banned, and he escaped from the country and went to Brazil, where he died then of old age with the age of 80. Emil Heimann also died in 1936 before he could escape, but he died of a heart attack, fortunately. We just recently, and this was last year, published with the help of our historian, Hartmut Kollmann, a very nice work that commemorates the important contributions that these forgotten neurosurgeons have had to German neurosurgery, which now can be brought. Now, the real father of academic neurosurgery, when Emil Heimann was gone from Berlin, had to fill a vacuum. This was Wilhelm Tönnes. And this is not part, actually, of my presentation. I wonder if it's going to be fixed. Wilhelm Tönnes was discriminated, of course, by the Nazis, because the Nazis had already understood that for doing war, we needed neurosurgeons. So he had particular support from that area. He spent about 6 months of his training with Olif Rukona in Stockholm, so he basically learned the many tricks and techniques from the American neurosurgeons. He went then on to found the German Neurosurgical Society at a time before the Second World War, where he felt that he had to reintegrate German neurosurgery into the world neurosurgical community. And he was then also the first to found a neurosurgical journal. And actually the neurosurgical journal, which is called Zentralblatt für Neurochirurgie, was the first neurosurgical journal ever. It was founded because of his attempt to integrate all neurosurgeons of all countries into one journal and to stimulate communication between the different countries. Unfortunately, then, after 1939, you know the sad history of Germany. But he remained, and in his function as a very, very good neurosurgeon, as a clinician scientist, and he then went on to train many neurosurgeons that we know these days, and I will go into that. This is a replica of so this journal still exists at the moment. We changed the name a little bit, but now we're changing it back again to commemorate the fact, thank you, commemorate the fact that this was the first neurosurgical journal ever. So you can still publish it in it. It's Feide-Rode in Göttingen is the current chief editor, and we have an impact factor, in fact, of 1.29, so that is acceptable, I think, and it's going up. And it's the official organ of our society, and it also contains, as of this year, contains much of the information for our members, which are important for them. So I would ask you, if you want to, then submit your papers to this. Now this is a little tree I made up of some of the people that were trained by Tönnes and some of the neurosurgeons that are now playing a role in our country. And so it comes down to about 30 neurosurgeons that he trained. And of course many of these had pupils, had trainees. I can't show you all of them, it's a huge, huge community. But you might wish to acknowledge, you see people like Margaret here, O'Connick, Schürmann, Löw, who recently died unfortunately, and from these you have Thalbusch, you've heard of many times I suppose, Eulen, Sami, of course. Sami was a Schürmann pupil, so direct lineage, Steiger, Brock. So I cannot put everybody on this, and actually doing this PowerPoint presentation was very difficult, so at some point I stopped, but just to get the general idea, and I put myself there. I don't know if I should be in that very important lineage. But so you can see that Tönnes was actually a very important man indeed for our society. And when we look at our lineage tree, we have, I would say, three general lines here. The one is from Ernst von Bergmann, Moritz Borchardt, Wilhelm Tönnes, and now his 30 or more pupils, and their pupils who are making up the general population of neurosurgeons in Germany. Peter Krause, not so well known neurosurgeon from Berlin, Emil Heimann, and went on to teach Georg Mehren. Georg Mehren was the most important neurosurgeon in Eastern Germany. We lost contact to, and then the Upfried First School is here on the far right, which is a little smaller. Neurosurgery in Germany today, I would like to make a couple of remarks too. We have about 2,000 trained neurosurgeons. And if you compare that to other countries, that is way, way more, and probably way, way too many. We are only surpassed by Japan, which has 1 per 200,000 patients. But you know well that Japanese neurosurgeons don't all operate. They do all kinds of things in general neurology. In the United States, it's about 1 neurosurgeon to 65,000, if I'm correct. And then in the other countries, the concentration is much, much lower. So we do have too many. Most of them work at university or municipal hospitals. About 1/3 are in private practice, and most of those actually do spine surgery. We have about 1/4 of our neurosurgical population, or neurosurgical doctor population, about females, and that incidence is rising very, very strongly indeed. I'm doing about 320,000 procedures per year. Our society has 1,400 members. It's a scientific society. We have an annual meeting, and we also have as our central organ the Zentralblatt for Neurosurgery. As a scientific society, we like to discuss science and develop training. Those are many of most of our activities. And there's also Professional Association of German Neurosurgeons, and that is the society mainly for for all neurosurgeons, but mostly the private practice neurosurgeons are in there because of their specific needs and their specific desires for politics, reimbursement, and that is why this is also a very, very important group to have. This is the present board of directors of the German Society with myself. This is the president-elect and President Vice President Volker Tonnier. You might know Volker Seifert, who couldn't make it this time. Our secretary here, Fatih Braun, and our treasurer, very good man, Jan Kaminsky. And what we also have to support our training efforts is a Neurosurgical Academy for Education and Training that meets twice a year and discusses very important issues such as, for us nowadays, quality management, structures, certification issues, and organizes training courses for our trainees. We have several sections that look very closely at the individual areas of neurosurgery. Typically, the largest ones here are obviously spine surgery and neuro-oncology, but the others are not as large but equally important. They meet once a year, and they are a platform for discussions and also a platform for the young neurosurgeons to present their scientific work. And finally, we'll also have the German Academy of Neurosurgery, and this is not different from the German Society of Neurosurgery. This is an institution which was founded in 1996, and basically this was the founding document, which was a napkin, and this napkin was written upon during a boat cruise in Hamburg. And you might recognize some of the names here. You see Zami here, you see Roland here, and several of the others, Hermann, several of the others, predominant neurosurgeons at the time, Lorenz, Fahlbusch, Bock. And what this basically is, this group supports academic neurosurgery, basic neuroscience. They have very many international liaisons. We have yearly meetings and to discuss relevant political and professional issues. And membership can only be attained after you're proposed by two existing minutes. So that is different from the German Society of Neurosurgery, a very important think tank, basically. Training in Germany is 6 years for neurosurgeons to become board certified after an exam. Of that, you have to do 6 months of intensive care training, 6 months being in neighboring disciplines such as radiology or in neurology or other disciplines are accepted. I think one of the hurdles or thresholds that surgeons have to pass are 100 spinal operations and 20 tumors. Now, 100 spinal operations mean for high quality in spine surgery. This is much, much higher than what we have in orthopedic surgery in our country, where it's only 10 cases of spinal surgery you have to do, or trauma surgery, only 10 cases. So we think we have the highest expertise in spine surgery, although the others are competing against us very, very strongly. We have no formalized fellowship program. That is something we have to work upon. And finally, we have this problem here, which we also have to work upon. Again, I told you we have too many neurosurgeons. We have trained too many. And we have not disciplined us enough to say that we want to restrict the number of young people going into neurosurgery. This is something we have to work upon very strongly. You can see these lines just continuing. The blue line would be all practicing neurosurgeons. And that's creating a little bit of a problem, because even though we have many neurosurgeons, the young people understand that neurosurgery may not be that attractive anymore. And that is giving us a little bit of hard time, because we do have too few applicants at the moment. And there's also another factor, there's a demographic factor, of course. We're training as many students as we have never trained before, but they don't like to go into clinical surgery or neurosurgery anymore. We say it's the Y generation. The question is no longer work-life balance, it's life-work balance, and we are noticing that surgery is not that attractive anymore in our country. We really have to work on that. And so at the moment, we're also accepting, that's another little bit of a problem for trainees, of course, in many of the remote neurosurgical departments, and then there's language constraints. And so these are things we have to work upon. Another thing that is happening in our country is much competition in spine surgery. There is the German Spine Society, which is a transdisciplinary society made of neurosurgeons, trauma surgeons, orthopedic surgeons. And this is turning into a little bit of a competition for the traditional neurosurgeon who does a lot of work in the spine region, has the best highly qualified training. So that is something we also have to look upon and have to be very careful about. Endovascular therapy, we are basically lost in our country, unfortunately, but it's something we want to try to get back again for neurosurgery, and we're moving into training the first neurosurgeons again in endovascular surgery, because I think very, very strongly that a good vascular surgeon should be able to do both methods. And that is one of the chances we have to work upon. We have an overaging society, so neurosurgeon is not suffering from losing patients to gamma knife or to endovascular surgery because of the older patients and the high incidence of tumors or spinal seizures, so we're not suffering. But we need the trainees. And one thing we're facing also at the moment is a shortage of nurses. So while we have very many chances, there is a lot of work to do for the officers of our society for the future. So I hope you got a little bit of an overview of what neurosurgery is about these days. And I hope we could make the foundation for future interactions with the Egyptian society. And I hope it will not take another 15 years until representatives from your society come to our society and we will issue an invitation as soon as possible. And finally, I would like to point out something which I'm very busy with at the moment, because as acting president of the German Society, I have the privilege of being able to organize the annual meeting, and this is going to happen in June in Münster. Münster is a small city which is a little bit north to Cologne, about an hour's drive, 30,000 inhabitants. It's a large university. Neurosurgery is quite nice there. And that's where we'll be doing our annual congress. And if you happen to be in Europe at the time, then please come pay us a visit. So again, thank you very much for your invitation to your meeting and for letting us participate in this joint meeting. And thank you again for your attention.
Let me welcome President of Continental Association of African Neurosurgical Societies in his second country, Professor Dr. Abdurrahman Sidi Said.
Thank you. Professor Nasser El-Ghandour, resident of an Egyptian Neurosurgical Society. Professor Walter Schumer, resident of German Society of Neurosurgery. Dear guests, dear colleagues, invitation. And also, I congratulate all the members of the organizing committee and the scientific committee for this Congress. The 41st Congress of Egyptian Society is being this year in collaboration with German Society of Neurosurgery and also with Continental Association of Neurosurgical Societies. It is for us an honor to be here in Cairo, and also it is the expression of the interest of my friends and colleagues from Egypt to the development and to the collaboration in Africa. As you know, Egyptian society is the one of the biggest society in Africa, and also a big society in the world. And he is in part in Africa. So we have to thank every one of you, all neurosurgeons of Egyptian, for their collaboration with Africa Continental Association. The attractive and diversified scientific program and the various high standard courses and workshops of spine, of functional, of vascular, and endoscopic, will surely be very beneficial for young neurosurgeons across Africa and in Egypt. Thank you for a successful meeting. And I would like to project some slides regarding our society. As you know, the global ratio of neurosurgery is around the world 1 to 2030, while in Africa is 1 to more than 1 million people. So neurosurgery remains a very marginal activity, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. In this part of the world, some countries have 1 to 5 neurosurgeons. So the number of 10 neurosurgeons per country remaining a very high challenge. For example, we have Tanzania. For example, we have 43 million inhabitants for 5 neurosurgeons. Benin, 9 million for 4 neurosurgeons. Togo, see more than 7 million for 1 neurosurgeon. And also Niger, 20 million for 6 neurosurgeons. And we have 4 tomodensitometry and 1 MRI. So what can we do to improve this situation? What is the role of the CANs? The history of our society. Just a few years ago, Africa had 2 continental or 2 regional societies. So ANSA, which is Association of Neurosurgical Societies of Africa, and African Federation of Neurosurgical Societies, who are the 2 affiliated to the WFNS. And in Nairobi, in Kenya, in 2012, during the meeting, there was a Nairobi declaration with a consensus to have a single, united, and strong society. And also, during this meeting, we have announced, Professor Majid Sami announced the Africa 100 project. This Continental Association is born in October 2012. It's very young society, but strong society. And the project to form them aussi a single united continental society, which means Continental Association of African Neurosurgical Societies. The CANS organized the first Congress in Algiers on 2014. And during this Congress, more than 300 communication and lecturers presented at this first CANS Congress. And more than 100 scholarships for young African neurosurgeons. This first Congress will be present from 25 African countries in Algiers. The second Congress in 2017 in Cape Town with our friend, the President of the Congress, our friend Graham Figure, and we have a very successful for young neurosurgeon and also for senior neurosurgeon across Africa. At this time, the first time, what is the Africa 100 project? It is initiated by Professor Majid Sami with one sponsor to help 100 Africans during their scholarship of 5 years. in Africa and in the same environment of the candidate. The committee has accepted to 2017 more than countries, and the enthusiasm and volunteer of each of them expressed the voluntary to neurosurgery and will be benefit for their countries. In Morocco, there are 3 or 4 centers in Rabat, Fez, Casablanca, and Marrakesh. And also, there is a program in Kenya with East Africa program directed by our friend Mahmoud Quraish. And also in Egypt, in Alexandria with the candidate for Omar Musa from Zanzibar. What is happening in this project in Algeria? The Algerian authorities have supported Africa 100 since 2013. And in addition to exemption from the post-graduation contest, an additional scholarship is offered by the Ministry of Higher Education, as well as accommodation in a university residence. However, for registration, the equivalence and recognition of diploma of medicine degree is required by local expert committee of the university to finalize the inscription. Since 2030 to the current academic year, we have 9 candidates. The first one, we finished his training this year and become to home in Niger. Is in 5 years, and there is from Tanzania, Guinea, Mauritania, and Chad. And I would like to inform my colleagues about the volunteer of this candidate. For example, we have a doctor from Guinea who is mother of 2 children of 7 and 11 years, and she is coming in Algiers for 5 years to the training of neurosurgery. We have some pictures with our friend Rashid Sami and the candidate in Algiers and the operating room. What happened with the WFNS in Africa? So the training, instrumentation, equipment. Africa needs concern and contribution. The development of neurosurgery in Africa is a real challenge. Strategic and specific alternative should be proposed, taking into account the absence and inadequacy of financial resources. This requires funds and solidarity, and continuous support over several years will surely have a beneficial effect for training and neurosurgical care in Africa. Investment in training and concrete action on basic neurosurgical needs, as well as trauma brain injury, neurologic defect, and hydrocephalus. So the equipment and instrumentation are requirements. Until December 2016, the WFNS Foundation has dispatched 214 sets of medical equipment, and we have benefited in Africa of 106 neurosurgical equipment to Africa. This equipment was of the basic set of neurosurgical instruments, spinal set, cranial set, bipolar, etc. Microscope, high-speed clip from the foundation and also from our friend Yoko Kato. What is the fundraising committee? It concerns all of us, and many of our colleagues have invested and contributed greatly to the development of neurosurgery around the world, in particular in Africa. We have some pictures of Link who has worked a lot for the scholarship, and Yoko Kato with the donation, and also our current, the past president and the current president of the WFNS, and the chairman of the foundation of the WFNS. So our deep appreciation to many people who gave up their time and their money to provide advice and support for neurosurgery in Africa, as well as many of them who work behind the scenes. I have to thank my friend El-Ghandour, who has the first started the training in Africa in 2002 with the WFNS Rabat reference. Al-Islam, thank you for all his effort over several years and his contribution to the training for African doctors. Many Africans currently work in their country after their training in Morocco. So, just for information, past May, there was the General Assembly of World Health Organization, and the resolution 68/50 adopted for strengthening of essential and emergency surgical and anesthesia care as part of universal health care. At present, more death and disability occur due to conditions required by surgical and anesthesia care than from the infectious disease like HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria combined. The required funds and cost of scaling up surgical and anesthesia until 2030 to ensure the world's population access to safe surgical and anesthesia care is estimated at 30, 50, 100 billion dollars. The neurological presence at the 7th Assembly of the World Health Organization in past May positioned neurosurgery to be a key future partner in scaling up of emergency and essential surgical care and anesthesia in developing world, where traumatic brain injury continue to be major public health problems. So, in conclusion, neurosurgery should not be considered a luxury by public health authorities in Africa, as the majority of the patients have mainly neurosurgical basic needs, such as hydrocephalus, neurotube defect, and trauma brain injury. The continuous support over several years will surely have a beneficial effect for training and neurosurgical care in Africa. Strengthen and diversify lines between WFNS local societies of Africa, who are all challenged, and we must participate first individually and then at the level of our society and the WFNS. Thank you for your attention.
We are proud to have among us the President of the WFNS, Professor Francesco Tomaselli.
Thank you for this invitation. I'm speaking as honorary president of the World Federation. I would like to thank Professor El-Ghandour for his kind invitation and congratulate with the Egyptian. I attended the session this afternoon. I congratulate with the Egyptian colleagues. A very active scientific session, very nice participation and discussion. I would like to also address my feelings to German Society of Neurosurgery. We had several joint meetings, German and Italian Society of Neurosurgery, and I think that the speech of my good friend Sidi Said is really impressive. This is a mission, an educational mission. We have as World Federation, we continue to do our job. The World Federation, as you know, is the organization of global neurosurgery, including about 130 national societies. The speech of Sidi Said was really impressive because we know exactly at this time that 16 millions of persons die every year in the world because they don't have a primary neurosurgical care. So the project for Africa is absolutely essential, not only for Africa, but for the world. The Mediterranean area has become once again a crucial part of the world because, as you know, a population from sub-Saharan area arrive to the Mediterranean, to the northern countries of Africa, and go to Europe to find a better quality of life. So I think that we need to do more for Africa with the projects Abderrahmane Said already illustrated, but also with the new initiatives. Continuing the initiatives, for example, is important because we need to train young African neurosurgeons in Africa, because many of them go outside to North America, to Europe, but they often don't come back. So this is a very crucial issue. It is because we need to increase educational opportunities in Africa. For example, I appreciated that today I knew that there were several hands-on and cadaver labs in Cairo, and probably in these countries, in Egypt, in Morocco, in Algeria, and so on, it's easier to organize some courses and to train young African neurosurgeons. I knew in Rabat a young neurosurgeon, a female, now is in Canada, but was trained in Rabat, and she was coming from Rwanda. 6 neurosurgeons in Rwanda. but she told me, I want to come back to my country, to help my people, to help the citizens of this state. So I think that this is very important for every one of us, and I understand that Egyptian neurosurgeons who are really so active, so energetic, can do something for this project of education, And at the end of this, I think that this is very important. German society was invited to this congress, because I think that it's very important a strong Euro-Mediterranean alliance for education of African young neurosurgeons. I will have the privilege to organize in 3 months in Naples, in Italy, a congress of Mediterranean Association of Neurological Surgeons. I think it may be another support. And I decided, together with the president of this association, who is Suad Bakhti from Algiers, to have many courses, 3D video sessions, and also a simulation course, which will be held by Alessandro Perin, who is attending this congress from Besta with Francesco Di Mego. So I think that everything we do for this purpose will be absolutely welcome. So I thank you once again for this opportunity to speak, and I think that also the president of World Federation, Franco Servadei, who is a good friend of mine, will approve this claim for education, giving this task to the more advanced neurosurgeons, as Egyptian neurosurgeons really are. Thank you very much.
I'm honored to introduce His Excellency Amr Moussa, former Secretary General of League of Arab States and head of the Committee of 54th Egyptian Constitution, who will give us a memorial lecture.
Dr. Nasser El-Ghandour, the chairman of this conference, Professor Dr. Walter Struhan, the head of the German Association of Neurosurgeons, Professor Dr. Abdurrahman Sidi Said, chairman of the African Association, and Dr. Francesco Tomasello, the honorary chairman of the Mediterranean Federation of Association of Surgeons. First of all, I wish to thank the Egyptian Association for their invitation addressed to me to participate in the inaugural session of this conference. I also wish to thank all the 4 speakers that have preceded me for the wealth of information about the activities in this very important field of medicine, of doctors' activities. I was impressed by what we have seen pictures, the photos, the writings that have referred to the birth of this science back in the pharaonic era. And of course, you have noticed this mixture between God and doctor, healing, treating, trying to help the patient. And this is a message, a very rich message about the contribution of the pharaohs, and that the human mind works since long time ago to deal with the problems of the human being. We have come a long way to achieve what we have seen in the several films, in particular the German activities and the situation in Africa, as has been explained by Professor C.D. Said. It is clear that Africa needs help, and that the ratio between doctors and patients in Africa needs to reach the world level as soon as possible. This should be the responsibility, the duty of associations like the Egyptian one, the Mediterranean one, the German one in particular, not only in healing or treating, but also in training and in moving the science to reach the level that is needed for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot go beyond what I have said. It is clear that you will have a lot to say about this science. But for me, in addition to thanking the Egyptian Association for its invitation and thanking the speakers for their very lucid introduction of the issue, I wish to tell you a few words about what we hope in this region. After a major shake-up, some 8 years ago, the term that we should introduce is the term change, transformation. That this region is moving from a very difficult past, full of mistakes and wrong evaluations, wrong assessments, confused priorities, into a different era of awareness. And of course, you are aware of the fact that between 60 and 70% of the Egyptian population is young. 70% of the Arab population also belongs to the young generation. The same in Africa. The same in the totality of the Middle East. Therefore, the future belongs to a generation that is ready, a generation that is revolting, a generation that is looking forward to a better future. This cannot be achieved without a solid plan for education. And for good governance. And I'm one of those who believe that there is no return to the past practices. The 21st century has its power of influencing events. The people of this region, the people of this country, let me say first, and the people of this region, and the people of the wider region, containing Africa, Middle East, and several others, and of course the Mediterranean, are going through a very serious process of change. We have dealt with that in the Mediterranean Society of Nations. The Barcelona process. We have dealt with this in Africa under the aegis of the African Union, and we are dealing with that forcibly in this region that cannot sustain or accept the return of the status quo ante before this century or before 2011. Back to the secret is not so secret word, which is education. We need that in order to link up with the 21st century. And education has become a different issue altogether. It is not only to know ABCD, but with the social media, a little boy or a little girl that have not yet mastered this kind of education, they can connect with another boy or another girl as far as Indonesia to the east or Argentina and Chile to the west. Or those in the north or those in the south. That is a new thing that boys and girls are learning despite the programs of education, but we have to channel that properly into their power of knowledge. Also in this field, I was talking to one of the young doctors participating here in this conference before the session, and he explained to me that now the time has come already to the robots to perform instead of the direct human hands of doctors. This is a new world. If this is known in the United States and other nations, it will be here very, very soon. Again, like the mobile. So we have to get ready while we in Egypt, or we in Africa in general, or we in this region. We have to get ready for the new advances in science and in new science. That's what we need to know. So holding this conference in Egypt should be a landmark. Not to discuss that behind closed doors. To explain to us, how do you think of the future of this branch of science? What do you expect for the future? How can we help each other? I respect very much this experience as shown in the German film. And this has to be, and also what Professor Sidi Said has said. So there is a chance for us the population, the citizens, to know what do you want to tell us? Why are you meeting? What is the benefit that we, the people, are going to get from a meeting of such distinguished group of doctors and professors that have performed procedures, some hundreds of procedures in this neurosurgery science and industry. I thank you for allowing me to sit with you this hour. You cannot imagine the influence you have left on me, on my mind, that there is a branch of science we have to read more about and to bring back to our citizens this world that has the old generation, the medium generation, the young generation, generation after generation, believing in a science that needs to be explained to the people. And also to be helpful to a continent like Africa that definitely needs your contribution, your help, your training. Because in the 21st century, we shouldn't accept that a continent like Africa has one doctor for 230,000, and then I read to over 1 million citizens. While in Germany it is 2,000 to 82 million people. We need to get into mutual help, work together, and good luck, and thank you very much.
I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight in this amazing ceremony of the Egyptian Congress of Neurosurgery. On behalf of the President of the Egyptian Society of Neurological Surgeons, I'm delighted to invite all of you to have a dinner together in the welcome reception. Have a nice evening and enjoy your time.
شكرا يا فندم. لسه
النور اللي ورا مبوظ ده لازم تشرب يعني تصور اللي كان موجود ممكن تاخدها منه ويبعتها لحضرتك على عايزين نصور مع الباشا. هنا لا يا فندم يا عم لا هو على باشا لا ما حسن
الله